All right. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? I'm doing well. What is this, week 3 for us? It's going fast. That's 1/5 of the semester. It does go by fast. So today we're going to spend some time talking about learning. I put many things in your Canvas shelf where you think about learning. How many of you have ever spent any time thinking about how we learn? A couple of you. Most people don't, right? You're born, somehow you learn how to speak a language. Somehow you learn how to walk. Somehow you learn your ABCs. Somehow you learn a variety of different things over time. And yet most of us spend essentially no time thinking about how we learn. Should we spend some time thinking about how we learn? Should we take it for granted that we can learn? Right, yeah, I think you're all right on both counts, right? Thinking about how we learn, thinking about thinking, I know it sounds kind of circuitous. I'm learning about learning, right? But it is important that we spend a little bit of time doing this. And so today we're going to go through some slides. We don't have a whole lot of stuff to cover per se today. And then I'm going to hand out, as your attendance grade today, I'm going to hand out a learning inventory. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. So it's 2 pages. Some reason our copy machine stapled it at the bottom. All right? But you're going to get this and you're going to tear it apart. Okay? You're going to put your name on this one. This one you're not going to put your name. And you're going to read these prompts. And if it's a true statement for you, you're going to mark A on the form. If it's a false statement for you, you're going to mark B. I won't know who you are when I do these. So I'm using these forms that I've got a little fancy app on my phone that helps me grade things, and I can just take a picture and it does the grading automatically. And so I gather all this for the class, and this is our learning inventory. Okay? And I want you to be completely honest when you answer this. Again, I can't trace it back to you, but it's an opportunity for us to think about the ways in which we learn about our subjects. In particular, I'm interested in how you learn about chemistry, obviously, right? But for any subject in biology. So you're going to have these 11 items, and I'm going to give you plenty of time to sit and think about these. You'll do this. You'll turn them in separate, so I can't pick who's who. You'll turn them in up here, and then I will quote-unquote grade them. There's no right or wrong answer. I just want it to be an honest answer. Okay? Is that pretty clear to everybody? All right. Do you have a question? Oh, okay. So today's lecture is titled Stop Studying and Start Learning. Does that sound counterintuitive at first? What if your high school teacher had come in and said, I want you all to stop studying? What would you think? Yeah. Or, have you lost your mind? Right? Well, I haven't lost my mind, right? And so, why am I telling you to stop studying and start learning? Right? Stop studying? Well, not at least as you practice it now, right? I don't want you to stay in your old study habits. And we all have bad study habits, and it's easy to get into these bad study habits. You need to get into learning mode. There is a difference between studying and learning. I can study something and not learn a thing. And I can learn some things with very minimal study. Okay? So when you're going into your dorm room or home or your bedroom or wherever you do your studying, you can exhaust yourself to the point of getting ready to just fall over tired and not have learned a thing. Is that a good use of your time? No. Is how you study going to be the same as how you study? No. All right? That's why we're going to do a personalized learning inventory. Right? Get you to think and reflect on your studying and how you go about learning. Okay? So, as a class exercise, I want people to raise their hands and give me ideas. I want you to think of what words come to mind when you think of study and when you think of learning. Let's start with study. What words come to mind when you hear the word study?
Test.
Test? Study for the?
For the test.
Yeah. Pardon?
Reading.
Reading?
I was gonna say reading.
Reading?
Acting like reading.
Acting like reading?
Practice.
Practice?
Quizlet.
Quizlet? Okay. Do you have a different one? No?
Results.
Pardon?
Results.
Okay.
Time.
Time? Absolutely. Anything else?
Flashcards.
Flashcards? Good. Yes?
Grades.
Grades? Kind of correlate. If I study, I'll get a particular grade? Okay. So you're thinking about the time you spent, the reward you might get from that effort? That's good. Any other things coming to mind when you hear the word study?
Bored.
Bored? You said bored?
Boring.
Boring. Yeah, okay. And as a scholar, as somebody who spends their entire life studying a particular subject called chemistry, at times studying the books can be boring. I admit that.
Stressed.
Stressed?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Very good. Now let's switch gears just a moment and let's think about the word learning. Think about that for just a second. Learning. Now tell me what comes to mind.
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Active.
Active.
Understanding.
Understanding.
Discovery.
Discovery.
Introspection.
Introspection. Nope.
Interesting.
Interesting. So you're interested in learning, but you find studying boring. That's not uncommon, actually. I'm that way. I have trouble sitting down with a book and just reading it, even if it's a chemistry book. But when I'm interested in, I really need to know something about that because I've got this cool thing I want to do, it changes the focus.
Application.
Applications. What else?
A classroom.
Classroom. Okay. Learning takes place in a classroom. Does learning? That's a good point. Does learning take place here? Maybe. Maybe. But you know what absolutely takes place here?
No.
Is I talk and you sit. Those are the only things that really take place for each and every one of us. Some of you will leave this classroom today learning quite a bit. Some of you will leave not learning much at all. Unless you change something, right? If I came in here and I just started talking to you all without interacting with you, how fun would that be? Might be quick, might be easy, but it would be boring. I'm an organic chemist by training. The most boring class I took as an undergraduate at the University of Arkansas, I probably should have said it too loud, it's on recording, was one semester, Organic 1. I was in a lecture hall that held 300 people. And the professor walked in usually about 3 minutes late, turned on the overhead projector and just started writing and speaking into a microphone. Never looked at me, never talked to me, never told me why he was an organic chemist, never told me what was interesting about him. I was bored to death. Then the next semester, after I thought about, is this really what I want to do? I was in a class where the teacher was talking about all of these cool molecules that he works on in his lab and why he works on them, because they could potentially be anti-cancer agents. And we're looking, I mean, literally, he was telling me about dives they did off of Hawaii, the coast of Hawaii, to find these sponges, and they were extracting these molecules, and they were analyzing them by these different techniques that I was learning about. All of a sudden, I was like, man, that's really cool. I want to do something like that, right? But he did not come into the classroom 3 minutes late, turn on an overhead projector, and turn out the lights. Okay? It was very much so more like what I'm doing with you now, except he was writing much more on the board. Okay? So I learned a lot more in that class, I can guarantee you. So some of it's on us as faculty, a lot of it is actually on you, okay, as students. So we've come up with some things for study and learning, right? So here you are in the middle. This might be how you feel about it sometimes. But these are some things that you all kind of came up with. These are things that your predecessors actually came up with over the last several years. But studying, we think of reading and reviewing, maybe research, exercising, doing exercises, doing my homework. I didn't hear it this time, but usually people say cramming, cramming before the exam, memorizing things, right? And then the things that your predecessors kind of came up with for learning were things like wisdom, training, research came up there, attainment, permanent, right? The difference between studying and learning is studying, I might know something for a short period of time. Learning, I really know it, right? Understanding and then transferability. What does transferability mean?
Being able to teach it to others.
Okay, that's one way to think about it, being able to teach it to others. We're going to talk about that today as well. But also, if you really understand something, you really know something, you're able to take that body of knowledge and you're able to extrapolate it to something new. That's what we want you all to be able to do when you leave this university. I don't care that you remember every little fact that we teach you at this university. I care that that builds a framework in your brain to where you can go out and discover new things. Okay? We no longer need people to work in places to just regurgitate facts. I got Google. I've got ChatGPT. I've got whatever. I need you to be creative. I need you to actually create new things, right? And so I actually looked up the definitions of these two words, study and learning. When you look at the dictionary, right? Just typing in, telling Google to define these words for me. You'll notice for study, it says the devotion of time and attention to acquiring knowledge on an academic subject, especially by means of books. For example, the study of English. Similar words are learning, education, schooling, work, academic work, book work. Okay, that's kind of what it told me studying. Learning, however, is the acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience, study, or by being taught. These children experience difficulties in learning, right? And then they're similar: studying, education, schooling, tuition, okay, and teaching. So, what would you say about these two words? Are they independent of each other? No, but are they identical?
Yes.
No, they're not identical. They're not identical. But they actually have overlap. It's hard to learn without studying, but you can study without learning. And many of us do, myself included. I have to admit, sometimes I will study something and I will read and read and read and read, and at the end of it I go, huh? And I have to go back. That's the learning cycle, though. Right? Learning isn't just seeing it one time. Notice learning talks about acquisition of knowledge or skills, first and foremost, through experience. Why is it that every chemistry class, for all practical purposes, that you are going to take, are you also going to be in a laboratory? Because it's not enough for me to tell you that the combustion of a hydrocarbon yields carbon dioxide plus water. You need to experience that to really know what that means. Oh yeah, and by the way, there's a certain set of skills that we're going to equip you with that are marketable and you can go out and get a job in a laboratory. That's another reason to be in the lab. But the primary reason to be in the lab is to take what you learn in this classroom and learn how to apply it in a controlled setting so that we can give you the skills that you need without you killing yourself. So that when you're done, you can go out into the real world and perform these skills safely and generate new knowledge. But what I want you to understand is these two words, while they are similar, they are not identical. Okay? And some of you will figure out how to learn a great deal by doing efficient study, and some of you will have to study more to achieve the same thing. And that's okay. We're all unique. We all operate at different rates. We all operate, but we can all learn, and we can all actually master this material quite well. I guarantee you that. Okay? But it took me longer in PChem to learn those concepts than it did a colleague of mine. And I got through organic 2 a lot better than she did, in terms of the amount of time I had to spend studying. We do have some talents, that some things that we're just naturally able to do better. But that would, if I just focused on that, that would put me in what kind of mindset? Fixed, right? And even though, hey, I was pretty good at organic, I knew I could do better, right? I didn't get A's on every assignment, right? I could always do better. So keep these things in mind. Okay? What I want you to focus on too, I want you to think anytime you say, I got to go study, what do I want you to replace that with? Learn, right? So when you tell your friends, I've got to go study, I want you to tell them what? I got to go learn my chemistry, right? Don't say I got to go study for chemistry. Say I got to go learn some chemistry. Put yourself in learning mode. It is different because you can spend a lot of time studying and not learn a thing. And that's not what I want you to do. Okay? I want you to spend your time wisely, and I want you to learn the material that you need to learn. And you all can. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm your professor, obviously, right? So let's start with it. So let's say I am going to ask you to come into this classroom and next week and teach the class a specific topic. Just say I'm going to pick one of you. I'm going to say I want you to teach X to the class. So you're going to need to prepare materials for class. You're going to need to prepare some type of presentation. You might need to prepare a series of activities for the other students in order to satisfy my expectation. Right? I might want you to stand up here and talk about a topic. Think about that. How many of you does that scare? The first time I did, I was terrified. First time I was in front of a group of students, I was terrified. Right? Not everybody is naturally accustomed to being in front of the classroom and talking to people. Right? But let me ask you this. If I gave you this assignment, would you go home and simply study that topic, or would you learn that topic? You would learn that topic. And why would you learn that topic as opposed to just studying that topic?
If like someone had a question, do you know the answer?
All right, so you want to be able to answer questions. And why do you want to be able to answer those questions?
So you seem like you're knowledgeable.
So you seem like you're knowledgeable. It's our vanity coming out, isn't it? Right? I do not want to stand up here and look like a fool. I went through all of these slides before I came to class today. Why? Even though I've taught this class for nearly 8 years now, or whatever it is, I will look like a fool to you all. Right? So how much time do you think, if I gave you a topic on, something that should take 30 or 40 minutes for you all to present and teach the class, how much time would you spend preparing for that? And be honest, how much time do you think you'd spend if I told you you had to come up here and talk for 30 minutes? How much time would you spend preparing for that? A lot. What's a lot?
Hour?
An hour? Do you think you would prepare for an hour? Okay.
I say 12 hours at least.
12 hours?
6 to 7 hours.
6 or 7 hours? Okay. How much time do you all spend preparing for an exam? Do you spend 12 hours preparing for one exam?
No.
Some of you might. A lot of you will say no. And we're being honest with ourselves, aren't we? Right? Why will you spend more time coming up here to talk to people that well, in this case, you'll probably know each other better, but let's say it was a random class, people you may never know again, versus an exam that may completely impact your entire semester's grade? Why would you spend more time on this? Right? Because again, you don't want to look foolish. You don't want to look silly. Right? You want to be... I want you to get that same excitement and dedication to preparing for your exams, for your assignments, for everything that you're going to need to be successful in your career as a college student, right? So there's this Latin phrase, Lucindo Dismas, by teaching we learn. By teaching we learn. I did not know chemistry as well as I do, I didn't know chemistry as well when I was a graduate student as I do today. And it's not because I'm older and have read more. It's because I've had to teach it. Right? You really know things by being able to teach them. Okay? Imagine having to stand in front of a class like that. I've had to stand in front of classes, in front of, not often, but of somewhere around 300 people, and I've had to talk with authority about a subject. I did not walk into that situation cold. I learned the material, I knew what was coming, I knew what I needed to say. I may not know each and every word, but I knew I could get up there and confidently talk about it. How can we use this phrase to help us learn our material? How many of you, go ahead.
Study or learn as if you have to teach it.
Okay, very good. Did you have a, no? Okay. What else? Yeah.
I know that some people they like bring their stuffed animals and then put them in a row and then pretend to teach.
They do. They do. In fact, that came out of Yancey McGuire's book, who I based some of this lecture on, where she talked about a student who she taught to learn by teaching, and apparently this student taught their little Groot. They had a little Groot, and they taught them all kinds of stuff about chemistry. Okay? I can teach without you learning. So that doesn't matter if it's a stuffed animal or not, right? But as I'm teaching, wait, did I just say what I thought I said? I don't think I really understand this topic if I can't explain it, right? So, teaching is one of those valuable things that you can do to help yourself learn. But you're students, right? So how are you going to teach somebody? How many of you use study groups? Well, I can tell you a couple of things about study groups. Number one, they can be very valuable, and number two, they can be very unvaluable. Right? The worst thing about study groups is that people who are in a sinking ship typically gravitate to one another. Okay? And I mean that with all due respect. But there's nothing better than the feeling of being in a class that somebody's not doing well in and finding somebody else who's not doing well. I'm not the only one, and let's get together and let's study. And what happens? Those two people get together and they start complaining about the professor, they start complaining about the material, and they get no studying done. Right? So study groups are very, very important and very valuable tools for you all to learn, but you have to select your study groups appropriately. Find people who know something that you don't know, and for things that you know that they don't know, and then teach each other. That's the value of the study group, where you're teaching each other. So hey, you may know something about organic chemistry. Hey, you may know something about the analytical chemistry. Let's get together and let's talk about these topics that are going on in our curriculum this semester. And so if you're using your study groups to actually teach each other, it's a very valuable tool. If you're in a study group to complain with one another or to feel a sense of community about not being the only one who's struggling with a particular topic, and I don't mean that negatively. Everybody's going to struggle with a topic, right? That doesn't mean you're a bad student. I'm not suggesting that at all. But you need to get together and you need to teach each other as you form your study groups. And so pick your study groups wisely. So let's talk a little bit about how we learn. How do we learn? This was in one of the reading assignments that I gave you, Learning to Learn. Okay? It's a little cartoon strip. I taught Stripe how to whistle. I don't hear him whistling. I said I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. Right? When I walk out of this classroom, I've done my job. I've taught. You got to learn. I can't learn you, right? I can help you learn, right? My job isn't over just simply when I walk out of the classroom. I have office hours. I have opportunities for you and I to talk with one another. All of those things are part of my job, right? But at the end of the day, your learning is solely yours, right? That's what I want you to get from this. And you need to take ownership of your learning, regardless of what you end up studying, okay? And yes, there's going to be some things that interest you more than others, and that's okay, right? But the learning is really in your boat. Another thing that came out of that reading that I think is very important is this learning cycle. What can you tell me about that learning cycle? What does it it mean to be cyclical?
I would say it's a circle, so there's not like a start or end.
Yeah, you can start at a lot of points, right? You can end up back, right? But what else do we know about circles?
It goes on loop.
One.
It goes in a loop, right? So it can go over and over and over again. That's learning, right? You will learn something in a class. In your general chemistry class, you will learn something. You will think you know it very well and deeply. And then you'll get into organic chemistry and we'll go, now we're going a little bit deeper. That's another lap of the cycle. We're going to get deeper and deeper understanding every time we go through this. What can you tell me about these things that are here, other than they're in a circle?
There are different ways of learning something.
They're different ways. Are they complementary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can learn one thing, but doesn't fully give you understanding
Yeah.
unless you follow the other ways of learning.
Yeah. So there's watching. I learn all kinds of stuff on YouTube. And then when I try to go do it, a funny little thing I found on YouTube the other night. I watch YouTube a lot when I try to go to sleep. But I found this thing on YouTube how you can fold a t-shirt in like 2 seconds. It's called the ABC method. And I went, man, that's easy. And then I tried to do it. And it kept coming out wrong. I'm like, wait, you pick this up, move this? No. But I watched the person do it and it was whoop, whoop, done, right? So watching gave me some level of learning, but I still couldn't perform it, right? So what would I need to do? Right? I'd need to do it, right? I would need to think about it. What am I doing wrong? How am I getting this wrong, right? So all 4 of these things are very important to your learning. If you go to class and all you do is listen to the professor and you leave, which one are you doing?
Just watching.
Yeah, you're kind of watching, right? Or listening. We can put that there. And you'll have a certain level of understanding, right? Doing this major's for you. Right? You're going to be in the laboratory doing experiments. At first, you're going to be doing experiments that I know the answer to. But eventually, you're going to be in a research lab for your capstone, and you're going to be doing activities and experiments that I don't know the answer to. So you and I will be learning at exactly the same time, right? And that's kind of cool. What about our feelings? Is that important?
If you don't feel confident about something, you're probably not going to do well.
Okay. That might be kind of a fixed mindset kind of thing. That starts where our feelings start to come into play, right? Can we control our feelings? We can learn to, right? I mean, we have immediate reactions, or what I call knee-jerk reactions, but we don't have to just settle with that, do we? Let me give you an example. One of the things that I have to do quite frequently as a professor is write papers and submit those for publication, or write grants and submit those for funding. And they always, not always, but quite frequently, they come back, we're not going to publish your paper here unless you do this, or we're not going to fund your proposal. How do you think I feel about that when I get that information back? Think I feel great about it? I do not feel great about it. I feel angry about it. I feel upset about it. I feel like the other person's stupid. They didn't understand what I was trying to get away. And then I hear myself say that. They didn't understand what I was, it's my job to make them understand, right? So now I'm learning, right? So I've taken my feelings, I'm looking at what they've provided me, and now I'm going to think about that, right? What can I change? What is reasonable for me to change? What can I explain better? And then I do something about it. I rewrite the paper, I rewrite the proposal, I resubmit it. I go through this learning cycle the same as you all, right? It's important to understand these different pieces, right? But a lot of people get stuck here. And that's the fixed mindset, right? These things are connected. Well, they didn't like my proposal. It must be a stupid idea. Not necessarily. There are some Nobel Prize winners out there, Bob Grubbs being one of them. He's since deceased. But he's changed the chemical industry through a process that he developed that when he submitted those proposals decades ago, people were saying this is not going to be useful. But he didn't give up. He got it funded, he got the work done, and he made a big splash in chemical history, okay? But keep in mind, experiences are many things. It's making mistakes. College is a safe place to make mistakes, right? You're going to have some failures. You're going to have a lot of successes too. But you're going to learn more from the failures and the mistakes, and I guarantee you will from the things that you do. Repeat performance, your interactions with others, your personal reflection. If you get that exam back and you didn't do it as well as you wanted to, and you just wad it up and throw it in the trash, and you don't reflect on it, the biggest mistake you made was not self-reflecting. Because guess what? That information on that exam will be on the final. Right? And that's an opportunity for you to learn. Right? It's an opportunity for you to go to office hours. It's an opportunity for you to hit the books again. And we'll talk about those different things. Anybody know what this is called? It is a pyramid. It is a pyramid, but do you know what that particular pyramid is called? For those in the learning areas, this is called Bloom's taxonomy. It's the things that we know. There are many layers to this onion or to this pyramid, right? There is certain knowledge that we call remembering things. Homer never remembers much, right? Understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. Where do you think your future employer is going to want you to be? At the top. They're going to want you to create. Maybe evaluate and analyze. There's some ranges in there. But definitely people hire you to come in and add value to their company, to their business, to their practice. You have to be a value add, right? I don't need you to remember things anymore. I can Google that, right? That used to not be the case. We used to have to employ people to remember certain things. But things have changed. Where do you think you are on the pyramid? Where do you think you came out in high school? Where do you think you are?
Understand.
Maybe at the understanding level. Some of you maybe understanding to applying, maybe. Right? I would say somewhere in here. Where do we want you to be by the time you leave with a 4-year degree? Actually, probably somewhere in here for realistic. Right? To be, if you end up being a professional chemist, right? You might need to go on to graduate school or to medical school. So you'll get up there, but many of you will be more in this area, being able to evaluate, analyze. You'll be able to create a little bit, but I wouldn't say you'll necessarily be completely at the top of the pyramid. I don't even put myself completely at the top of the pyramid all the time. Okay? Depends on what we're talking about. There's some things I'm clearly at the top of the pyramid. There's some things that I'm still working my way to the top of the pyramid, right? This is Bloom's taxonomy. I want you to think about where you think you are. Are you at the same point in every one of your classes? Probably not, right? For some of you, chemistry, you're probably up a little higher. Math, probably up a little higher. Some of you, maybe it's your humanities stuff that you feel like, maybe you came from a high school that had a lot of dual credit stuff in English and history, and so you feel like you're a little higher up on the pyramid. That's okay. That's fine. Okay? So we can definitely climb that pyramid over time. Okay. Metacognition. This comes from Teaching Students How to Learn. It's a book by Dr. Sandra Yancey McGuire. She was actually a chemist, interestingly enough, at LSU, and she got out of doing laboratory chemistry stuff at some point in her career, and she started running the Learning Center at LSU many years ago. She's retired now. And so she wrote a book over her experiences of running the Learning Center. So she taught students how to learn. And so I heard her talk. I was very impressed by the things she was talking about. I bought her book and I've read it 3 times. Okay? If you're interested in a read on how to think about your thinking, definitely get Dr. McGuire's book, Teach Students How to Learn. It is definitely a good read. So she comes up with these 10 metacognitive strategies. What does it mean to metacognitive?
Self-aware.
Pardon?
Self-aware.
Okay, self-aware, thinking about thinking, right? Being self-aware about things, absolutely. So these strategies are good strategies for you all, right? When you get ready to go into a classroom, it's better if you preview the material before you ever come in, right? So previewing the material that you're going to learn is very important. Prepare for active reading. What do I mean? What is the difference between active reading and reading?
Reading to understand.
Reading to understand would be active reading, right? Yeah. So if you just pick up something and just start reading it, are you actively reading? No, you just have a bunch of words. How many of you have read a page and got to the end of the page and went, did I read anything? I've been there. Yeah, I've been there. So was I actively reading? No, not at all, right? It's what I do when I can't sleep. I pull up my tablet and I start reading something and then I fall asleep, right? That's not active reading, okay? I have read many a books that I could not tell you a thing about because I had to go to sleep, okay? So that is not active reading. Active reading is reading to learn, for understanding. Paraphrasing. Why is that important?
Being able to take a vast subject and pare it down into something that's more easily memorable.
Okay, very good. Very good. You'll read some complicated stuff in a book, and you need to be able to digest that into a sentence or two. Pardon?
Writing complex ideas into simple words.
Yeah, absolutely. Simple words, right? We all have a vocabulary. Think about your complex vocabulary, and then think about how you know what those words mean. How do I know what that word means? I know that word means something, and you always trace it back to some simple experience, right? I know what a hill is, not because I know the definition of the word hill, but because I used to live on one, right? I experienced what the hill was, right? So paraphrasing is very, very important. Active reading, again, this idea of reading for learning and understanding. Use your textbook. I'll tell you a true story. I don't remember the student's name. It's been many years ago. They emailed me one evening. It was about a week before the exam, and they said, I understand absolutely nothing about what's going to be on the next exam. I said, okay. I said, so I got some office hours, come see me. They came and saw me. I said, well, let's pull out your textbook. They pulled out their textbook. They did bring the textbook, and as soon as they opened it, what do you think I heard? Crack. I said, have you read anything yet? Nope. I just come to your class, and I don't understand a thing. You weren't prepared to learn anything that I was about to talk about. When I come to a class, especially when I'm teaching organic, I can tell you, each and every one of your professors has assumed you've at least read the material to some level. You've prepared your mind to receive information. Okay? So you need to use your textbook correctly. Does that mean you start at the very start of the sentence and just read your way through everything? No. What would you say is a correct way to use a science textbook? Let's say it's chapter 1 in general chemistry. What would be the correct way to use that textbook?
Read what you don't know.
Read what you don't know. Okay, that could be a tactic. Look over the terms. Let me tell you how I do it. And I had to learn this. Because when I was in your boat, I just started at the first part of the first paragraph and assumed that's what the author wanted me to do. First thing I do is I look and I go, how long is this chapter? What are the figures showing me? What are the bolded words? I wonder what those mean. Then you'll notice almost all textbooks, unless you're reading a novel, are broken up into chapters with sub-chapters. There's a reason for that, right? So if I know I've got 10 sub-chapters to read or sections to read in this chapter, I know how to schedule my time. I know what I'm looking for. I know how to master a set of material before I move on, right? So make sure you use your textbook and use it correctly, okay? Attend class and take notes by hand. I notice many of you have your laptops up. Why is this better than this? Or is this better than this?
remember it more if you read it, so.
You do. I don't know why. And I don't need to know why. But I know it's a truth. Right? I know it's the truth. I know that when I take notes by hand, even though I chicken scratch, I remember things better than if I type it. Typing to me is an activity to finish something. This is learning to me, and I don't know why, but it's true. Okay? Could I do that on a tablet just as effectively? I think so. Okay? I think you can, but take notes. Take notes by hand. Do your homework without using examples and do them when assigned. Very important. You have to struggle a little bit. You're going to come up to a problem and you're going to go, oh, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. Yep, that one's good. Then you're going to come up to one, you're going to go, I don't even know where to start. And you're going to be tempted to say, well, let me go back and look. No. Struggle with it for a minute. I'm not saying you have to sit there all day until you get the right answer. But part of the struggle is learning, right? I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. What assumption am I not making, right? So make sure you do without using your examples to get you started, okay? Obviously go back to your examples to check your work. That's perfectly fine, okay? Teach the material. We've talked about that. Work in groups, but proper groups, study groups, right? We talked about that. Create your own exam. It's a great way to learn the material, okay? And then I put in 11. She had 10, but I put in an 11th. Personal reflection on your performance. Very, very important. You do these 11 things, I guarantee you, you will do better than if you don't, okay? I will sign that guarantee. Now, McGuire calls this the study cycle. What do you think I'm going to call it? Learning cycle. That's right. So, you need to preview the material before you come to class. Does that mean you have to read and understand everything? Absolutely not. But you need to know that when you go into Dr. Broom's class, that today he's going to be talking about this part of the periodic table. Right? You need to prepare your mind for what you're about to receive. You need to attend class. And I know that seems like an obvious thing, but let me tell you something. A lot of people will not attend class in a way that benefits them. When I put this slide together many years ago, you were spending a lot of money to be in this class. You or somebody is paying a lot of money. I know it doesn't always come out of your pocket, right? But it comes to about 50 cents every minute that you're in class. 50 cents a minute. Every 60 seconds, somebody's dropping 2 quarters in there for you. That's a lot of money. That's how much an hour? That's $30 an hour. How many people in this room make $30 an hour? Very few of us. Right? And I've had students that will miss class and pay that $30 to go to a job that paid them 10. That financial math does not work. Okay? Keep that in mind. Work with your bosses. I worked when I was in college. I get it. Work with your bosses on your schedule. It's important. Do not pay $30 to go earn 10. That math don't work. Review your material after class. That's very important. The sooner after class, the better. That does not mean you have to but look at your notes. Add additional commentary. Ask questions in your notes. Right? Study the material, right? Going to be in learning mode here, not necessarily study mode. And then assess. Work your problems, and then, of course, that repeats. Work your problems, check them, go back, study the notes again, right? Do this over and over. I want to make sure that we have time for our assignment here, so I'm not going to go completely over the Feynman technique today. We'll talk about that next time. We'll finish it up. But I want you, as part of an assignment, not graded, okay? It's just an exercise. I want you to go and Google the Feynman technique. Richard Feynman was a Nobel Prize winning physicist. He came up with this technique. This is how he learned things he didn't know anything about. I want you to come prepared next time to have a conversation with me as we go through these slides. Does that make sense? All right, I want to hand out this. Again, remember, the first page, write your name and put your ID number, please. The second page, do not put your name and spell out the questions. A is true, B is false. Read each one of those prompts and answer as honestly as you can. I cannot trace it back to you. This is in lieu of a note card today. Why it stapled at the bottom is beyond me. But it did. We'll look at that. Don't forget to tear the sheets apart, please.